Well, the president earlier on, we indicated, had also hinted at the possibility of removing visa requirements for all of the African continents, and the reasons were to spur intra-African trade. The president spoke, told participants at the 3rd Kenya International Investment Conference that the visa restrictions are in fact the reason why trade within the continent of Africa is choking, and that remains the lowest in the world at 17%. The president also urging African countries to ratify and effect the African Continental Free Trade Area, and the reason is to harness the potential within the African market. Remember, the 3-day conference has attracted more than 35 trade ministers from around the world. That story is ready now, and let's listen in.
Africa accounts for 16.8% of the world's population and contributes about 3% of the total global trade. Intra-Africa trade is also the lowest in the world at 17% compared to 40% in Asia, 60% in the US, and 70% in Europe.
I challenge our ministers as they deliberate on the most appropriate resolutions to the outstanding issues in connection with the protocols to envision a unified Africa and promote the creation of coherent regional value chains whose outputs will bear the proud Made in Africa distinction.
President William Ruto says border restrictions, poor infrastructure, underutilized arable land, unfair competition, financing gaps, and over-reliance on export of raw materials are some of the key challenges hindering the growth of trade and commerce in Africa.
You have been assigned the task of generating viable strategies to resolve Africa's connectivity deficit in order to overcome logistical barriers to trade.
President Ruto urged African leaders to lay down policies to support private sector growth, underscoring the need for financial stability as key for economic growth.
Afrexim Bank, in its mandate to facilitate intra-Africa and extra-Africa trade, embarked on building a centralized payment and settlement system to support trade under the ACFTA. It is called the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System. Banks and payment providers can plug directly to it to enable secure and instant payment in local currency.
The launch of a single common currency also came up during the meeting with the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, Wamkele Mene, urging African leaders to conclude the stalled talks on an African single currency to fast-track financial settlements.
The AFCFTA has corrected a long-standing anomaly, and that is that when West Africa trades with East Africa, or North Africa trades with Southern Africa, before the entry into force of the AFCFTA, we were trading on the basis of the so-called MFN rules. In other words, there was no preferential treatment of Africans trading amongst ourselves. Therefore, the AFCFTA is an opportunity for us to correct this anomaly, to accelerate and boost intra-Africa trade, to create opportunities for investment, for jobs, innovation on our continent.
To expedite trade and capital requirements, Africa states will be able to access cost adjustment funds following a partnership between Afrexim Bank and the African Continental Free Trade Area. Poor infrastructure across African states is accountable for a price increase of around 30 to 40%. As such, addressing poor infrastructure across Africa is one of the key conversations that are currently taking place right here during the Kiko conference. If this is addressed, then Africa is bound to attain its quest of increasing intra-African trade that currently stands at 17%. Regina Manyara for Prime Edition.